Finland opens the EU gate to Canada. $110 billion defense surge triggers a strategic breakaway, pushing the United States to the sidelines. Greetings to our viewers following World Perspective News. A geopolitical slap has just landed directly on Washington's face. Finland has thrown open the EU's doors and calmly waved Canada inside, as if the United States were now just a shadow standing outside the corridor of power. And behind that seemingly gentle invitation lies a cold number: $110 billion in annual defense spending, enough to build an entirely new security architecture without asking anyone for permission. While President Trump remains preoccupied with tariffs and threats, old allies are quietly reshaping the chessboard, choosing a path of reduced dependence on the United States. Canada is accelerating its alignment with Europe, while the EU is expanding its ambitions across the Atlantic, translating diplomatic statements into concrete structures. A new alliance is taking shape, while America is gradually being pushed into the spectator's seat. Is this a strategic realignment, or a delayed warning to Washington? The coming developments promise even more surprises. Stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for continuous updates. The EU door swings open. Canada is called in. The United States is pushed to the bench. And the story begins with what seemed like a soft statement, but carried the weight of a geopolitical bomb. Finland's leadership appeared on Canadian television and openly stated that he could envision a stronger European Union where Canada could fully become part of it. Not casual diplomacy, not distant speculation. This was a calculated message delivered on camera, meant to be heard. Immediately after that statement, a chain of concrete actions followed. Finland's head of state made his first visit to Ottawa in 12 years. Agreements were signed without delay. Maritime cooperation was launched, including icebreaker development, shipbuilding programs, and Arctic technology projects. An ice framework was initiated, laying the foundation for control over strategic Arctic shipping routes as the ice melts. At the same time, both sides began negotiating intelligence sharing and defense coordination agreements. The most significant point was financial commitment. Canada and Finland aligned toward 5% of GDP for defense and security by 2035. For Canada's economy, this equals approximately $110 billion per year, a transformation of national defense into a fully integrated strategic system. The language of the joint statements revealed even more. Terms like strategic autonomy and post-traditional partnerships replaced old diplomatic phrasing. The message was subtle in tone but sharp in meaning. A system is being built where the United States is no longer at the center. Summits, bilateral meetings, defense agreements, and public statements continued in rapid succession. When combined, the picture becomes clear. Canada is being pulled deeper into Europe's security architecture, step by step, structurally and financially. And across the Atlantic, Washington is realizing something uncomfortable. The chessboard is still moving, but they are no longer setting the rhythm. $110 billion rewiring the power axis. Canada changes course, America waits on the sidelines. The numbers reveal what diplomacy tries to hide. A commitment of 5% of GDP for defense is not symbolic. With a GDP exceeding $2 trillion, Canada is preparing to inject around $110 billion annually into defense and security. This is enough to build a complete defense ecosystem, from industrial production to battlefield deployment systems. More importantly, the direction of this spending matters. Negotiations between Ottawa and Helsinki are expanding far beyond NATO frameworks. Intelligence sharing agreements are being drafted. Joint operational planning and military exercises are being structured in parallel. Cooperation is shifting from coordination to integration. A new operational architecture is emerging, where Canada is directly linked into Europe's security network. In the Arctic, a new strategic battlefield is opening. Climate change is unlocking previously inaccessible sea routes, turning the region into a geopolitical hotspot. Finland contributes Arctic operational expertise. Canada brings vast territory and resources. Combined, they create a strategic advantage that the United States can no longer easily control. Icebreaker programs, maritime technologies, and route control strategies are being accelerated at high speed. Meanwhile, the European Union is restructuring internally, pushing toward defense banking systems and reducing veto-based decision-making. The goal is clear: strategic autonomy and reduced dependence on Washington. Canada appears at exactly the right moment, as the missing piece of Europe's expanding strategic puzzle. Step by step, Canada is moving out of its old orbit and into a new system. And when that system becomes large enough, America's central role begins to erode, not through confrontation, but through gradual replacement. No single announcement, no dramatic rupture, just continuous repositioning, until Washington realizes it is no longer inside a system it once designed. Chain reaction. Canada turns, Europe tightens, America loses coordination power. What is unfolding is not an isolated event, it is a chain reaction. The Nordic summit in Oslo laid the foundation. Leaders from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, and Finland established a new multilateral framework. Quiet, but structurally significant. Shortly after, bilateral meetings accelerated the process. Finland's presidential visit to Ottawa was not a beginning, it was a continuation of a pre-built roadmap. Defense, intelligence, Arctic development, and supply chains were all connected into a single expanding framework. Meanwhile, growing fractures between Washington and European capitals are becoming visible. Trade pressure, unilateral decisions, and political tensions are eroding trust. When trust weakens, alternatives activate. Canada is leveraging this gap, expanding ties with the EU not only economically but strategically, integrating into defense and industrial projects. The sequence is clear. Multilateral foundation right-pointing arrow, bilateral expansion right-pointing arrow, deep integration. When all layers are completed, EU membership for Canada stops being speculation, it becomes a logical next step. And in this process, Washington is gradually losing its coordinating role, not by exclusion, but by structural redundancy. The rules are not being rewritten, they are being replaced. The European Union is quietly reshaping itself. Discussions on reducing unanimity rules and speeding up decision-making are accelerating. Only by becoming more flexible can the EU expand its strategic reach beyond Europe. Canada is now openly mentioned by European leaders as a possible future partner. This reflects a new strategic mindset. Geography is no longer an absolute barrier when strategic interest is strong enough. Canada offers scale, resources, Arctic positioning, and technological capacity. The EU offers stability and predictability in governance. Together, they form a complementary structure. And across this emerging system, the United States is no longer the guaranteed center. Instead, it is becoming one participant among many, watching a system evolve without requiring its approval.